Live.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the League of Women Voters of Rye Brook, and Port Chester. And this is the Board of Education Forum for the Port Chester District. My name is Roz Lahr, Vice President of our league. Our league is focused on achieving two main goals. One is to encourage informed and active community participation in our government and schools. And two is to increase the understanding of policy issues that will impact our lives and our communities. We thank the candidates for their interest in public service and thank the Port Chester voters for their topics and questions submitted for this forum. But most importantly, remember to vote. Election day is Tuesday, March 18, and the polls will be open between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. at Port Chester Middle School. This replay of tonight's debate can be found on our YouTube channel or on our website by searching the League of Women Voters, Rye Brook, and Port Chester, and is available on your local cable public access provider. Our moderator this evening is Catherine Daring. She is a banker, writer, author, and a member of the Bedford League. And Catherine, it's up to you now to have a wonderful evening, and everybody, good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roz.
Thank you.
So I am from Bedford. The name of our league is League of Women Voters of Northeast Westchester, because our league now encompasses Bedford, Lewisboro, North Salem, South Salem, Pound Ridge, and Mount Kisco. So we have quite a territory. So let me introduce all the candidates to our voters who are out there. We have, I believe they're in no particular order, Sharon Burke. Want to just wave at folks and say hi. Oh, and there's David Matthews. All right, Sharon Burke, Richard Cerulli. Thank you. David Matthews. I'm just introducing everyone, Mr. Matthews. George Ford. And Lou Russo, who's the incumbent. The candidates are competing for two positions on the board for they will serve for a period of 3 years. So you're choosing from 5 candidates for 2, and you will get to vote for 2 of the 5. When we enter the actual forum, the candidates will be given 90 seconds to make their opening statements, and they will have 90 seconds to make a closing statement. And in between, they will answer several questions which have been submitted by some of you voters. Because of time constraints, they will each have to stop talking at the end of the 90 or 60 seconds. And for that purpose, we have timekeepers. So the timekeepers are members of the Rye League, and their names are Roz Lahr and Barbara Brunner. And if someone is talking and it's now 30 seconds to the end of their section there, they'll show that sign, 30 seconds left. And then when they've reached the end of their time period, they will hold up a stop sign. So we've asked the candidates to please pay attention to the signs, slow down, and stop as appropriate. So now we will get into the actual forum. Before this forum began, a couple members of the league and I drew names out of a hat for an order of presentation. And the order will be used throughout the program, but we'll keep rotating who goes first. So you'll see how it works when I call out the names. And at the end, for the closing statement, we'll put the 5 in reverse order. So the first opening statement will be made by Richard Cerulli. Mr. Cerulli?
Good evening, and a special thank you to the League of Women Voters for this opportunity. I am a Port Chester graduate, and I must say I'm quite indebted to the Port Chester School District. It put me on a path to lead me to a career of academia, to a professor, a department chair. I also went into senior management. I was a professor, and I probably educated myself for 40 years. And I am also a published writer and playwright. So I believe I have a very well-rounded education with a special thanks to Port Chester, who really set that foundation for me, was able to, at a very young age, show the importance of a well-rounded education, not only math and science, but the arts. So I would like very much to return this debt to Port Chester, and hopefully I can serve it as well as it has served me. Thank you.
Great, thank you. The person to go second will be Mr. Ford.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. It's great to be here with all of you, and I must say, I am very excited about the future of the Port Chester School District and what this means for all of our children and our community. First, let me thank the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's forum, the other candidates for their participation, our fellow residents who are tuned in remotely. I wish we were in person today, but that day is going to come again soon. For those that don't know, I grew up in neighboring Rye City in the Dublin section. If you don't know that, think the Rye Roadhouse. I attended the Rye City School District and Iona College. For the last 10 years, I've been employed in the solar industry, developing large-scale solar and battery storage projects up and down the eastern seaboard. In 2006, my wife Karen and I moved to Port Chester. We have two children, George, who is a 5th grader, and Caitlin, who is a 2nd grader. Both attend King Street School and have only known Port Chester as their home. For years, I've been advocating for our schools and community, participating in the discussions, providing recommendations and solutions to the issues. I served on the Bond Advisory Committee, the Superintendent Search Committee. I've been a class parent each and every year. I coach teams in both the Port Chester Youth Baseball League and the Rye Town Youth Football League. I served on the Village Voting Rights Committee and also the Police Reform Committee. I've been a cheerleader for our schools and communities since day one, and I desire for nothing less than to see Port Chester finally reach its full potential. I greatly appreciate this opportunity, and I look forward to serving our community once again. Thank you.
Thank you. The third person to do their opening remarks is Ms. Burke.
Good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's forum, to my fellow candidates, and to the audience for tuning in. In the coming years, we have an opportunity to shape the future of Port Chester schools in a very dynamic way. As a parent of 3 children in the district, I have a 9th grader and 2 7th graders. I invested in and I'm committed to the success of our district. I have volunteered in our schools and in our community in many roles and on committees. I have been a vocal advocate, traveling to Albany to fight for increased foundation aid for our district. I feel strongly that Port Chester schools have many strengths, especially our students and our staff. If elected to the board, my focus will be to improve the educational outcomes and the mental health supports for all of our children, to manage our state and our federal aid responsibly, to ensure equity and inclusion for all students, to strengthen our district's relationship with the community, and to expand our sports programs. As we transition out of the pandemic, our most pressing need will be to meet the academic and social-emotional needs of our children. Improving educational outcomes while acknowledging the toll the pandemic has taken on our children will be key challenges in this coming year. And I look forward to working collaboratively with the staff and the board to enhance and improve our district. Strong schools are vital to a strong community. Thank you.
Thank you. Going forth, the next candidate will be Mr. Matthews. 90 seconds.
Let me unmute. Oh, you unmuted me. I was going to say I passed, but I'm just joking. It's just a joke from another debate. Okay, I'm David Matthews. I grew up in Rye, New York. Graduated from Rye, went to Westchester Community College, was involved in administration there, the Faculty Student Association, treasurer for the school senate, president of the Alpha Beta, vice president of Alpha Beta Gamma, which is the Business Honor Society, and a host of other positions that I held at that school, which was able to, which helped me in getting into Cornell School of Industrial Labor Relations, where I was able to excel and really participate in extracurricular activities. One fact that you don't know, I was a cheerleader, college cheerleader. I have a varsity letter, so I'm a varsity person, a letter person. One thing about me is my kid couldn't go to Port Chester School, unfortunately. It's sad, but the school, my cousins went to Port Chester School. My best friend's kids went to Port Chester schools. It just did not, it wasn't a place where he could excel. It wasn't a welcoming place. I mean, it's sad, but it wasn't. I watched the development since he was a baby. He's now graduating this year from high school, and the school still hasn't changed. So that's why I'm here. I look at what's happening to Blacks in the school. It's horrific if you look at the numbers, and how come nobody ever saw that they were being left behind at the, all the reports say it, and this is year after year after year after year. So if it's
Okay,
not,
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Matthews, but you've used your 90 seconds.
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. The fifth candidate to give opening statements will be Mr. Russo.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks so much. It's great to be here today. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters, our community, my fellow candidates for the opportunity to speak tonight at this forum. With one term under my belt, I'm excited about continuing to work to achieve success for every student. As we transition out of the COVID-19 pandemic with a new superintendent, restored foundation aid, and federal aid, we need to maintain focus on three things. One is supporting the district and facilitating social, emotional, and educational recovery in our district. The second thing is strengthening the BOE's relationship with the community and with the district. We've been disconnected for quite a while now. Supporting the district and restoring educational opportunities for our student body, leveraging our new resources to foster an environment where opportunity and equity is provided for our diverse community. I believe I've worked hard to earn your trust by researching, critically examining all district topics, upholding welfare and of the students, and serving in a professional, respectful way and in a productive manner. So I kindly ask for your support and honor and privilege to serve a second term so I may continue my work and for our school district and community at this pivotal moment in our district's history. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Russo, and thank you, candidates, for your opening remarks. We'll now begin the question and answer period. The questions were submitted by residents of the school district, and I have a list of them here. We will, each candidate will have the opportunity to answer each question. The order of who responds first will alternate sequentially between the candidates. If you have a chart, you just move everyone over one. So the first person to go will be Mr. Ford, followed by Ms. Burke, then Mr. Matthews. So the same order we were in before. So I will now read the first question, and it will be answered first by Mr. Ford. What do you identify as Port Chester School's greatest strengths?
So thank you for that question. I think one of the greatest strengths, I don't think I actually know, one of the greatest strengths is our staff, our teachers, our aides. We have a really great staff in Port Chester that support our kids, give our kids everything and anything they need. And at times I've heard stories from different teachers and aides that, they're going into their own pockets in cases to buy things for our children. These are very caring people. We live in a very diverse community. It's a lower to middle income class community, and our teachers understand that and acknowledge that. I think one of those attributes there is certainly something that myself as a parent recognizes that this is so important for all the children in our district.
Thank you.
These are,
Ms.
sorry,
Burke?
forgive me, these are 60-second answers, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Ms. Burke, you go next.
Thank you for the question. I loved starting off with this. I find that our greatest strength as a district is our commitment, the commitment of our people, and our children as well. I find that this past year has really shown that our teachers are willing to go above and beyond. Our staff is willing to go above and beyond. They've gone to children's homes to make sure that they have Wi-Fi. They've made sure everybody has laptops. And I think the children have shown how resilient they are. The other thing I really appreciate about this district is we offer different pathways to success. We have the community schools model here. We have dual language program. We have honors, AP, IB classes, which are open enrollment. Any child may take those when they're in the high school. And I find that is something particularly, it's a particular strength to Port Chester. Not every district allows that, and it gives our children more opportunities.
Okay, thank you. The same question, what do you identify as Port Chester School's greatest strengths? To be answered by Mr. Matthews, 60 seconds.
I think Port Chester School's greatest strength is the children and what they bring to the table. Their diversity, their passion for learning, many of them having what's called true grit. They're going against all odds. The lack of leadership over the years has unfortunately not allowed the teachers to have the tools that they need so they could fully excel, because they're compassionate and they want to give our children everything that they can, but the leadership was lacking and they weren't as supported as they should have been from the leadership. So I want to give I believe that I can give them, with our new superintendent, the support that they need, our teachers, so that they can continue to do the excellent job that they've been doing. But the true grit comes from our children.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, Mr. Russo.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, I think one of the greatest strengths, I've been here 40 years, is the tremendous traditions, deeply rooted traditions that we have in this community. But we're always pushing towards the future. I think that's important. And I agree with Mr. Ford when he says, we have a tremendous people in our district that really go the extra mile for our student body and our administration as well. Finally, within that student body and community, the great diversity that we have, I think those are all the major strengths in our community, our district. Thank you.
Thank you. And same question to Mr. Cerulli.
Yeah, I'm going to support George Ford on that when we look at the asset. And I think we have to really do look at our educators, because if we look how well they've managed the teaching process amid COVID and a very serious recession, how well they managed that with very limited resources and actually dealing with a lot of social problems, social economic problems created by the COVID, the COVID virus. And I think when you look at how much money is given for each student for learning, and you see how much they've achieved, we can actually see we've really maximized their ability to capitalize on a very small amount of money to make rather great advancements and contributions. So I will have to give, hats off to our educators and the teachers that are frontline, and also the teachers of the next generation. So I think they need to be applauded for that.
Okay, great. All right, question 2. And the first person who will answer first will be Ms. Burke. How should the relationship between the Board of Education and the superintendent best work? And what immediate priorities would you like to see the superintendent address? Ms. Burke, 60 seconds.
Thank you. I feel the relationship between a superintendent and a board should be a cordial one. It should be a solid working relationship. That is at the foundation of a school district. And without that, a school district can't function properly. We have a new superintendent coming in July, Dr. Enriquez. I was on the superintendent search committee, and she impressed us with her commitment to outreach to the community. She was data-driven. She talked about seeing through a systemic equity lens, which I feel is really important in a district such as Port Chester. And I feel that as responsible stewards on the board, that we would be able to have a healthy relationship and a very professional one. And that's what I would look forward to.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Matthews, I'll repeat the question. How should the relationship between the Board of Ed and the superintendent best work? And what immediate priorities would you like to see the superintendent address?
I think the relationship is a partnership. I think we have hired someone with excellent credentials who hopefully will bring some new ideas to our community. I think we need to support those new ideas because what we've been doing hasn't worked. I think we really need to get behind her with a passion for our children and for learning, so she can create the type of learning environment that we need so our children can be successful. Part 2 of the question was, go ahead. I'm sorry, I've been up since 4:30.
What immediate priorities?
We have to do something to address what's happening with Black kids in that school. It's horrific. We have to address that. It's been going on for way too long since my cousins that are the same age as I am were in that school. It hasn't been fixed. It was getting better for a long time. It had a 6-year climb, and then all of a sudden the bottom dropped out. I don't know what's going on, but that needs to be fixed. And I think it was lack of leadership over there.
All right, thank you very much. Next, same question to Mr. Russo.
Yes, obviously the relationship between the superintendent and Board of Education is critical in a district. And I think that, it should be, as been mentioned earlier, a supportive relationship, symbiotic, so that we can work together for the benefit of the district, obviously. So I think it's important, as Ms. Burke said, as the new superintendent takes the reins, that we start to build those relationships right away. In addition, we have to recall the roles of the Board of Ed versus the roles of the superintendent. The superintendent, as the CEO, runs the day-to-day operations, and the board sets the visions and goals and policies. And I think if working in those two capacities and constantly reinforcing those ideas, that the relationship will get off to a great start.
Okay, thank you. Same question to Mr. Cerulli.
Yeah, I really believe that what should occur is you need to really develop a new institutional culture for the school district. I think we really have to look at this as a business. We manage a very big business, we manage an enterprise. And I think having transparency with the board as well as the administration, I would like to see not only transparency, but I'd like to see a lot of metrics so that if we're going to be spending the taxpayers' money we want to make sure that we spend it properly and that money is placed into the right hands where it has the maximum impact to the students. So I'd like to really see where we could take metrics and say for every dollar we put into a construction project, how does it increase the intelligence of our students? Every time we increase a tax increase, how does it benefit the student and how does it impact that ratio per student? And then if we do upgrade that ratio of students and we say we take it up to $30,000, then we have to take that ratio and turn it into a metric and see how much more intelligence was gained per dollar. And I think when we start
Thank you.
taking a very economic vision, thank you.
Finally, same question for Mr. Ford, the relationship with the superintendent and priorities.
Yeah, I thank you. I do agree with Dave. It is a partnership. The board is obviously elected by the people and the superintendent is chosen by the board, and it is a partnership. I too served on the superintendent search committee, and I'm happy to say that Dr. Coles and his team at Southern Westchester BOCES did a great job in the superintendent search. They brought us 3 very qualified candidates. And I'm actually very happy to say this will be the first female superintendent of the Port Chester School District. So we should be very proud of that. I think Dr. Enriquez would provide us with a fresh start as we come out of the pandemic, bringing us a new and positive perspective. I think she's, and I'm actually confident that she'll provide the leadership that our teachers and staff have been wanting and waiting for. Certainly, this has been a bone of contention. And as she stated, she's a teacher first. But she has worked in various positions throughout her career, and we are lucky to have landed here in Port Chester. As far as priorities, one,
What's your time limit?
okay, thank you.
Sure you can address it somewhere else later.
Will
Okay.
do.
Question 3. The first person to answer this will be Mr. Matthews. Dealing with the after effects of the pandemic. Can you give us your thoughts on how the administration should deal with the resulting educational gaps in the children, as well as how to maintain a safe and healthy environment in the near future?
I think we, one, need to support them and make sure that we have or increase the number of people that we have supporting our mental health and wellness program. I think we're lacking there. I'd like to bring 2 more people in. And I'd like the superintendent to take a look at that and see if that's will that work with what she's planning on doing. I think we need to provide some exercises for the children to show them that they are safe and that we are looking out for their best interest, and that the school, if they have a concern, where they can go with those concerns. So mentally they feel safe and capable, because that's the best learning environment, when people feel safe and protected. So that's really pretty much what I want to do. I want to make sure that we have the right mental health and we have the people who are sharing experiences and sharing with the kids and listening to the kids, making sure that they're okay, because this is going to be a shock to them coming back.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Next, Mr. Russo.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. The pandemic. Can you give us your thoughts on how the administration should deal with the resulting educational gaps, as well as how to maintain a safe and healthy environment?
Yeah, so with respect to the educational gaps, I mean, it's quite a job that's coming ahead of us here, and they're going to be busy dealing with assessments and gauging, grade levels and the amount of gaps that exist on the student level. And then once the assessment part of it is over, they'll need to start, getting them back on track. So we have things like summer school, after school programs. We have RTI teachers coming in with a new budget and other resources to get them back on the right track. And as far as the safety and security, I mean, there's also, mental health professionals that have been budgeted in this new upcoming budget. We're increasing those resources so that we can transition out of the pandemic. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll hear from Mr. Cerulli.
All right, well, obviously there is quite a bit of catch up we have to do. And and any catch up or any additional education requires dollars, of course. So I do think, the summer school is very important. I think that we have to do that and possibly bring in some form of mentoring as well, both in terms of emotional and for academic improvement. I think we'd have to work with the superintendent on that, watch those performances, see what has to be caught up, and then do an assessment afterwards as to how successful that plan of recovery was.
Okay, thank you. Same question to Mr. Ford.
So, it's interesting because we're talking about what we should do, and that plan should already be in place. And when I look at other school districts, surrounding school districts that are ahead of the curve instead of behind the curve, they've already implemented plans. They've already used the data. They've been studying the data and have implemented, how they're going to ensure that their children in their district are reaching their grade level by school ending in mid-June. So the fact that, we're here saying, well, how would you do that? As a board member, that's certainly not our jobs. Our jobs are to set, policy. The superintendent's job is to do that. And again, I am encouraged by Dr. Enriquez because she is about data. She measures, she assesses, and uses that in her professional career as a superintendent to ensure that the children are getting what they need. And again, I think that's one of our main issues here in Port Chester is we're not focused and looking forward. We're always looking backwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, Ms. Burke. And do you need a reminder on the question?
No, I believe it was about educational gaps and how to maintain a healthy and safe environment.
Right.
Schools. Summer school. I'm thrilled that we're going to be able to offer summer school. It will be at 5 of the 6 buildings this year, and it will be for the children who have been identified by their teachers as those who would most benefit, is my understanding, from the learning recovery process during the summer. Assessments absolutely key, of course. The children take STAR Renaissance tests, in September, in January, and end of May. So it will be interesting to see at the end of this month where they are, and then again in September as well. As for the focus on RTI, as Mr. Russo mentioned, with more teachers in the budget, it's going to be just a terrific benefit for our children. Already Edison School scores in the top 20% of high minority schools in New York State for test scores.
Okay, thank you.
That's in large part due to RTI.
All right, thank you. We're at question 4. And the first person to answer this will be Mr. Russo. Do you support this proposed school budget? Why or why not? And what are your specific recommendations to improve the district's financial position? Please include how you would use the foundation aid that's been given to Port Chester in your answer. All right, so that's 1 minute.
Yeah, so thank you. So, we just adopted the budget recently. That's going to be up for the vote. So, the things that we looked at, the foundation aid is going to go to things like, restoring programs on the larger level and bringing back resources that we've lost over the years, like elementary art teachers, instrumental music string programs, bilingual RTI teachers. And so there's been a lot that's been restored and that will be restored in the future also. And so I'm gonna, with the foundation aid that's coming in, my main goal is gonna be to prioritize, reinvesting that money into our student body so that they can achieve all that they should and could. And, giving them every opportunity they deserve.
Okay, thank you. The same question for Mr. Cerulli.
Okay. Well, I'm approaching this not so much as a spending plan, but as an investment plan. I don't just think by throwing money at a problem, you're going to solve it. And I think when we start looking at the needs, I mean, we really have to look at the opportunity cost of all our decisions, because obviously $1 you put in one program is $1 taken away from another program. So I think we should make those decisions that just don't say, well, let's spend this money and let's see what happens in the future. I'd really like to engage in some serious cost avoidance so that we maximize the dollars of all our investments. I would also see if there is, I'm not sure if there's strings attached to that money, but I think we should try to give something back to the taxpayers. I mean, they've been supporting the school district to the sweat of the brow during a very terrible, recession, COVID era. And I would also like to see money go into vocational training too. I think this is something that's been neglected, and I think this would play a very good part in preparing our students and give them a very round overview of how to prepare them for the business world.
All right, thank you very much. Same question for Mr. Ford. Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I'm good, thanks. So yes, first and foremost, yes, I support the budget. Am I supportive of everything that I see in the budget as a wish list? That really begs to understand, again, a longer term plan. So this budget has been passed by the board. It'll be up for a vote. We will support it. But as one of your other earlier questions where I wanted to add some more context would be that, with the new superintendent coming in, to do a complete review and assessment of our district, our programs, where we're successful, where we're unsuccessful, and utilizing that funding, not from a top-down approach, but from a bottom-up approach. We need to ensure that every single dollar of this year's budget is going directly to impact the success of our students. And I think from that standpoint, a complete review from Dr. Enriquez when she becomes and takes office, that is going to where we're really going to understand where our money should go the next year and the following year. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Burke?
Yes, I support this budget 100%. And I was very glad that it passed unanimously as well by our board. There's so much to be happy about with this budget. We have sat through previous budget seasons during which cuts were made over and again. And it was those were very difficult meetings to sit through for all of us. So I'm thrilled that we are receiving the state and federal aid that we are, and it's important to use it wisely. The board is the stewards of the district. We need to advocate for our children while being mindful of the tax burden that is felt by the people on fixed incomes in Port Chester. The fact that our administration was able to put the list together so quickly of how they would spend the aid money coming in tells me that this was something that they had been thinking about long before. This was not just pulled out of a hat. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ford, did you want to rebuttal?
I did, thanks. I just, to follow up what Sharon's saying, we have seen cuts throughout the years, but that's only half the story. And really what we've seen is and to Dr. Cerulli's point, why we've taken away from programming. For example, 10 years ago, we cut 13 RTI teachers, but within the next year or two, we started to develop and utilize funding for a dual language program. And then we implemented IB. So yes, there have been cuts, but there's also been additions as well.
All right, thank you. All right, so our last person to answer the question about the budget and aid is Mr. Matthews.
Could you please repeat the question? It's been
Sure.
Thank you.
Do you support the proposed school budget? Why or why not? And what are your specific recommendations to improve the district's financial position? Please include the foundation aid in your answer.
Okay. I do not support the budget as written. It adds to administration where we don't need it. So I do not support it as written. The dollar amount we could manage. What's being paid for, we cannot. With regards to the money that's coming in, I support Mr. Cerulli, which is taxpayers should get some money back. That's important. I think we need to support vocational programs in this district. Children need multiple options to be successful. My idea, and what am I going to do? I'm going to put solar on every single building in the district, and that's going to help pay for increasing teacher salaries, building and develop a sustainable budget in the future, because we'll be able to sell that extra power back to the grid. 7,500
All
schools.
right. Thank you. 1 minute goes by quickly, doesn't it? All right. Question number 5. So we're doing fine on time. Okay. The first person to answer question number 5 will be Mr. Cerulli. Am I pronouncing your name properly?
That's correct.
Cerulli? Okay.
Sure. Is that true or false?
No, no, that wasn't the question.
Oh, okay. I thought I would ask.
The question 5 is,
Okay.
what next steps should the district take, if any, to address issues regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion in our schools? So I'll repeat that because I kind of messed it up. What next steps should the district take, if any, to address issues regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion in our schools?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I think we've made some very good steps. I think just by nature of the demographics of the village, we are within an area of much diversity. I agree with Dave. I think that we should really look at the Black population and make sure that they are treated equally and not made outliers of this. So I think we're on a good path, but it shouldn't be exclusive. It has to be a very broad-based plan that brings everyone into the fold. So I think we are there. We have some work to do. I think we'd have to work with the new superintendent. And I think once again, it takes education, not so much educating the students, but actually educating the administration as well. There's a lot of change occurring in our country, and I'm not quite sure if the schools, since it's moving so rapidly, it's not a criticism, but there's so many changes occurring right now with us at a social-economic condition. I think they have to be educated on it as well. Thank you. I'm sorry, I overran myself.
That's all right. All right.
It's a professor problem.
Yes. Okay, the next candidate will be Mr. Ford.
Thank you. So, yeah, first and foremost, we need to ensure that we're cultivating a safe environment for all of our students, and that should be paramount. Equity is just not for a group or a subset. It's for all students at all levels. And I think we need to recognize that our $116 million budget needs to be utilized for each and every student. Mr. Matthews continues to point out the African-American population. Yes, unfortunately, our district was cited by the state under a TSI report, and it's something that we're lacking. And while equity is, again, for all students, we have a very diverse population. We are a very accepting and loving community. and we include everybody in the equation. So I think we need to focus our attention on all the students and specifically to the reporting that we're getting from the state as well.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Burke?
Thank you. I'd like to see a diversity, I'd like to see a task force set up to study in our district diversity, inclusion, and equity. And it would be made up of staff, of residents, and of students. And they can look at what we're doing now and the tools that we're using, whether they're textbooks or online resources, to look at it all as a whole and see where we're falling short. And they could make recommendations to the board, which the board could implement. I'd like to see paid translators at all BOE meetings. We've tried volunteers, they're hard to line up. I'd also like to see them at PTA, PTO meetings as well. I'd like to see report cards in Spanish, to bring universal pre-K down to every 4-year-old and then down to every 3-year-old, because that is the foundation of learning right there at those early ages. And polling sites at all 4 elementary places as well.
How are we paying for that?
Yeah. Actually, you go next, Mr. Matthews.
All right, I'm going to try to be as quick as possible. I've been doing diversity and inclusion work for over 40 years. So I don't agree that there should be a task force. That's just a way to stall and impacting change. I think people need to understand that diversity management is all about self-awareness, universal connectedness, and we need to support that in our students. We need to provide them with an engaging place for learning, where learning excels. And that is, to George's point, all the children. The New York State test just tells us it's not working what we're doing for all the students. It needs to work for all the students. We have like about 22% kids that don't make it. That's too high. That's way too high. So no, I'm not going with a diversity game. I'm going with, hey, let's build self-awareness in these children, make them strong. Let's give them hope. Let's instill hope in their hearts, and they will excel. Thank you.
Yeah. As long as Ms. Burke brought up the issue of language, I'll mention here, and I'll mention it again at the end, that when this forum is rerun on the YouTube channel, the users will be able to select closed captioning and language, so they can get it translated into one of several languages, and they'll be able to get closed captioning. So you can let the people in Port Chester know that that is an opportunity for them.
Thank you, because that was a big problem earlier on, as you know.
Yeah, and you know, it's so hard to do it, you know, right tonight. So we can't do it
I
live.
appreciate the efforts that the league has taken to resolve that issue, and it's just going to keep getting better. So thank you.
Yeah, Doug French did a great job working on that, and the members of the league that lining that up, I guess. I don't know. Let's see. So I didn't go through everyone. Mr. Russo still has not answered that question, and that question was about diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah, so in our district, rather, we have different programs. We have no hate in Edison, One World. Edison was recognized by the Anti-Defamation League. One thing I learned about recently was what they're doing in Hastings, where they have a district diversity committee that that incorporates the community input and so forth, the kind of thing that Ms. Burke. So I'd like to see with the new superintendent, with her vision and her experience, to bring all of these resources under one umbrella and come up with a diversity and inclusion of program. And by the way, that this is going to be a mandate from New York State soon. It's going to have to be part of the curriculum. So we should leverage our existing resources and programs that we have under the guidance of the new superintendent to develop this program.
Okay, thank you.
Rebuttal. Do I have an opportunity to rebut?
Yes,
Okay.
in 30
First
seconds.
off, I'll say that he mentioned a program that doesn't exist, and he's sitting on our current board, which is One World. That program is stalled. So I'm not sure why he mentioned it. So I'm kind of confused. That's it. I just don't, we currently also have the superintendent meets with the NAACP and other interest groups at least once a quarter. I think it's once every 2 months. So we do have that process in place.
All right. Thank you.
I'm surprised.
I'm not supposed to let you rebut a rebuttal,
Okay.
but no. So I'm looking at Mr. Russo. He has his hand raised, but I'll allow it this one time. Okay.
Well, the One World program was not eliminated, it was curtailed. But it's been in our.
You didn't vote on it.
I'm sorry?
You had an opportunity to vote on it and you didn't.
Yeah, we did.
You didn't.
We did.
All right.
And,
Well, we
so
can't
the
have
other-
crosstalk.
other,
All right. Let's stick with
Yeah, so the other,
format.
so, yeah, and the other thing, we do have a lot of community partners like Carver Center and other ones that we brought under one umbrella, NAACP being one of them, to the monthly meeting or periodic meeting. We try to do it monthly. But
Right.
so there are resources in the district
Right.
that we're going to leverage to.
That's all I can allow for now. Thank you. Question 6. How important are school rankings to you? Oh, by the way, question 6 will be answered first by Mr. Ford. How important are school rankings to you, such as the U.S. News and World Report? And if you think it's important, how would you improve?
Thank you for the question. So yes, look, I think our students need to see their growth and their performance. Just like when they're playing in a sports a game, whether it's Little League Baseball, whether it's high school football, everybody likes to win. They like a positive feeling. They all want to win. And we want our kids to win. And we need to provide them the tools to win. Again, we have a significant amount of foundation aid coming in. We need to focus on measuring our data. We need to focus on giving our kids, our staff, our teachers what they need so our children can see their test scores improve, so they can see their performance improve. And I think overall, this is where Port Chester is going to really thrive over the next 3 years, again, with new leadership, increase in funding, and again, our kids getting the tools and our staff getting the things that they need to bring us to that new level. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Burke, same question. How important are school rankings to you? And how would you improve Port Chester's rankings?
I understand the human, it's human nature to want to be at a high ranking. There are 700 districts in New York State, and my understanding is Port Chester right now is about 237. And we would like to be higher, and we have been higher. Unfortunately, one of the things one of our challenges is that with a large English language learner population, they're 1/3 of our district, it takes time for children to learn a new language and to learn it so that they can perform well in school and on tests. And I understand that this is a concern. I hear it a lot in the elementary schools. I remember when my kids were there and this would come up again and again. But we have to think of the long game. By the time our kids graduate, they're doing so well. I mean, over an 8-year period, our graduation rate is in the 90s. So I think that is what is most important when you look at school rankings.
All right, thank you. Same question, Mr. Matthews.
Okay, first and foremost, there are other schools with that are more diverse than us that are doing way better than we are. With that said, Pearson's law states if you're not measuring it, if you're not tracking it, then you're not managing it. If you're not managing it, you can't improve it. So when you look at Pearson's law, whatever you measure improves, and whatever you measure and report back improves exponentially. So yes, these reports are indicators that don't tell the full story, but they are absolute indicators in terms of how we're doing. And yeah, we're comparing, trying to compare with other and compete with other schools. And from that, we get sources to go to help us. It's like, hey, that school's doing really good in that area. Why don't we go over there and talk to them and see what they're doing? And maybe we could adopt it to our school and help us in that area. So I agree with the measurements.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Russo?
Yeah, so the rankings are just one data point in many that the district uses in the assessment process. And so, while we look at them and utilize them, I think it's one of different things. And I know with Dr. Henriquez again coming up, she wrote an op-ed during the pandemic about how we should seize this opportunity coming out of the pandemic, about how we change the paradigm on how we do assess students. So I think it's going to be an interesting time, and we need the feedback loop. So I agree with what I've heard before. We need that feedback loop, and with this, like things like the STAR assessments and so forth, to be able to keep the students on track.
Okay, I'll get to you in a minute, Mr. Ford. Let's hear the fifth answer to this question on the school rankings, Mr. Cerulli.
Well, on first look, school rankings become very important. When we look at it, everyone wants to be number 1, 2, 3, or 4, rightfully so, and we should strive to be that. But to basically work off what Dave said, we really have to compare apples to apples when we look at this ranking and how it's determined. I mean, if you're looking at that ranking and the students that come in, or the schools that come in first or second, they're getting $40,000 per student. And we come at a lower number and we're at $22,000 per student. When you look at those metrics, it just doesn't really add up, because you're really saying this school is ahead because it has more money. But look how well we have done with less money. Look how far we've come. So I think I want to take this on a very positive note. I think, yes, we have to strive and we have to be better, because that's going to help them get back into college of the choices. Okay, sorry. I couldn't finish the sentence. Conjunctions don't count, right?
You can finish the sentence. Okay. All right. All right. So Mr. Ford raised his hand before. Is there something you wanted to rebut?
Yeah, thanks. Again, my children have been in the school district for 6 years, and I think this has been a bone of contention where everybody wants to deflect from the numbers. And that's something we have to stop doing. Our kids are going to school to learn. And at the end of the day, we have to measure how they're doing and their successes. And everybody, again, wants to see their kids succeed. I think from the standpoint of, this isn't a negative discussion. This is a discussion we have to have as a district and say, hey, how are we, going to succeed, and how are we going to get the data to reflect in higher scores? Kids are sponges.
I think you got to the end of that sentence.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Question 7, Ms. Burke will be the first to answer it. What do you think the district's role is in tackling issues related to student mental health and dependency issues like with drug and alcohol use? So student mental health and dependency issues.
I think we're very fortunate in Port Chester because we've adopted the community schools model here a number of years ago. And that enables us to have community partnerships like Open Door, Family Services of Westchester in our schools, providing medical services, dental services, mental health services. Screenings are done for children as they come in to Open Door for mental health. I'm very glad to see that there's increased money allocated from SERSA in our budget. We're adding 6 psychologists or social workers this next year. I think that's going to be very important and helpful for the community and our children. I was recently on a call with the Council of Community Services, and Open Door and Family Services of Westchester were talking about how they've met the needs, you know, the challenges that they've had in this past year and how they've been able to meet the needs of their clients. And so I think also new approaches to detention and restorative justice in our schools will be helpful as well with children's mental health. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Matthews? Want me to-
Okay, great. I think we need to get prepared for the mental health tsunami that's just about to happen. I think the pandemic has probably stretched everybody to their thinnest point. I think more so the children. I think we need to increase services and be prepared for that tsunami. What can we do in addition? I think we need to remember that hope. Children that have self-awareness, children that have hope, children that are engaged have the upper hand. They excel in school. They make better decisions. They set goals. They have a growth mindset. They feel highly accountable. So they have some self-awareness and they want to not harm themselves with drugs or alcohol. They make better choices. And if we give kids the hope, the will and the way, they'll take the way. We haven't done a good enough job of giving them the way in terms of how that they relate to the hope.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Russo, what do you think the district's role is in tackling these issues?
Well, I think it plays a major role and a very important role. And as Ms. Burke mentioned earlier, you know, we've leveraged community partners to provide those services and in a pretty effective way. And in addition to that, though, with the new foundation aid, we're going to be bolstering those services and capabilities in-house so that we can, not continue to work with our community partners, but bolster those services and resources so that we can, especially, obviously coming out of the pandemic, but once we move beyond that period of time, that we'll have those resources available, from there forward, so.
Okay, all right, thank you. Mr. Cerulli?
Yeah, well, I agree. I do think we have to add quite a bit of resources to mental health. I mean, just for the record, when we look at mental health, it does obviously impact learning, and there's a lot of, unfortunately, bad social taboos that go with it. According to some statistics, 17% of all adult Americans suffer from only 17% of adult Americans have optimal mental health. So if you look at these very sad statistics, the majority of parents may have a mental disorder that's going to be passed down to the child, either on a hereditary level or on a behavioral level. And the schools have to deal with it. They can't just dismiss it and just say it's something outside of academics. So I think we need to put the resources, and that tsunami, it's going to hit very soon.
Okay, thank you. Finally, Mr. Ford.
So thankfully, now that our kids are back in person learning, I know from my seat, I have seen a complete turnaround in my kids' social, emotional well-being. They are extremely happy to be back in school with their friends, seeing their teachers. But I think, to broaden that, certainly our partnerships within our community are extremely important. We need parental, teacher, and administration collaboration. Many schools still have a DARE program. We need to look at, how we can implement that with our amazing police force we have here in Port Chester. And, people also want to pick on the fact that we're trying to, we've put in, a brand new turf field and we're expanding our sports programs, but keeping kids off the street in general and active in sports and other programming is so important to their social emotional well-being, and certainly keeping them away from drugs.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next question. Mr. Matthews, you'll be first on this one. Please cite one decision the current Board of Education has made this past year that you agree with, and one that you disagree with, and explain why.
Getting the kids back into the classroom, because as Mr. Ford said, that was instrumental to their well-being. They had gone so long without seeing this supportive teacher environment. Like we said earlier, we have great teachers, and the kids miss them, and they miss that support, and they miss that feedback in person. So that was a great decision to reopen the schools. Horrific things that the board has done: waste the community's time, not focusing on the children, not setting separate meetings to do a personal lynching of a man that gave 40 years of his life to the community, and not taking that to the side and keep the school board meetings focused on the school and the children. That's a separate issue that needed to be dealt with separate. That was a horrific scene. Damaged the community, damaged the kids, and damaged some individuals as well. So no, not happy with it.
Okay. That question now goes to Mr. Russo.
The one decision that I agree with is adopting the current budget. I think we worked hard to, develop that, and we had a little back and forth, but at the end, it was passed unanimously, and it was very exciting to leverage the new foundation aid that we got. One decision I disagree with was, curtailing the One World program. I think, because it was a voluntary, well-established and growing program that provided an enrichment and aligns with the district that curtailing it the way we did wasn't necessarily something I agreed with.
Okay. Same question to Mr. Cerulli.
As far as on the negative side, I would say that there is, I think, a lack of planning, and we haven't optimized the way we utilize or spend money. I think we could have spent it much better with a little bit of cost avoidance. I think there needs to be a little bit more transparency. I think that's very important. And I do understand the new superintendent is very big on metrics, and I think this is very important. I can't harp on this enough, and I think we also have to start building a new culture that accommodates the new world we're living in. I think that's very important. I think adopting the budget, there's a lot of yays and nays in it, but the fact that it was approved and there's some worthy programs in it, now we own it, and we have nothing much to say about that, but we have to take what we have, maximize it, and we make sure we minimize the exposure to our taxpayers.
Okay. Now, Mr. Ford.
So I think, yes, the greatest decision this year was, again, the reopening of the schools and getting our kids back to full in-person learning. To the other side of that, and the downside was it took too long. We as parents were advocating and asking for a plan from our superintendent on how to get the kids back in school, what it would take, what that would look like. And again, I always go back to, just like with scores and rankings, I look at what other school districts are doing this and how they're doing it. And we saw plans being put out by many other districts, again, ahead of the curve, not behind the curve. And I think that was a poor decision on our part, that we just weren't working fast enough to get our kids back to learning full in person.
Okay. Ms. Burke. Best and worst. Or agreed and disagreed.
Agree and disagree. There we go. I would say one decision I agreed with that the board made was the reinstatement of One World after they delayed voting on it for months. It was a program that one of my children greatly enjoyed, and it provided enrichment at no cost to us. So I thought that was I was very pleased to see it be reinstated. Something I disagreed with, a board decision. I would have liked to have seen a second polling place added for this month's election, since the middle school is a far distance for people without their own transportation. I understand the time crunch that we're under, that we faced this year, but I feel strongly that it's important to increase voter participation. And I would just take dispute with what George is saying. I think our administration was working very hard all year on plans for us. And just because it can't happen on the time frame that some parents want, doesn't mean it wasn't happening.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I don't know. There's two hands raised. I think Mr. Ford's went up first, and then you'll go next, Mr. Matthews.
So, look, we can agree to disagree respectfully, Sharon. There were no plans. That's the fact.
Yes, there were.
There were not. And again, we asked for the plans. Look, when the school reopened finally, full in-person learning, what did we get from the district? I saw 10, 15-page presentations from other school districts showing what they were going to do, what the parents' responsibilities were, what the staff's responsibilities were, what was going to be in the schools. What did we get? We got a one-page document and a 5-minute dissertation. So we were not prepared. And if
Okay,
not for the
very good.
parents, we would not have reopened.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
disagree with that, George.
Mr. Matthews.
I'm going to have to 100% support what Mr. Ford just said. There was no plan. It was a horrific situation. I mean, we had so many kids at stake there that we had plenty of time to do one thing, to plan, to talk to other districts and collaborate and say, hey, what are you guys doing? There was nothing. It was, I mean, I was lucky. My son's school, they actually planned, got everybody back, no problem. What happened in Port Chester to these children? It's sad. It's just sad.
Oh, my. All right. Well, I guess Mr. Russo, and then we're going to go to our last question.
Yeah, I just want to distinguish between the idea that nothing was done, or maybe you weren't happy with what was done. I know that the administration and the district worked very hard and to get information together and to get the transition to opening. They met, with the county people and they did everything that was necessary.
Who'd
And
they
at
meet with?
at the end of the day, they opened it. So I think the opening went well.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go to the last question. And I have 3 left here, so I have to pick one. I guess I'll go with just question number 9. And this one, Mr. Russo will answer first, right? How would you rate the administration's communication outreach with faculty and the community? And how would you improve it if needed?
Well, I think the outreach with the community and in general in the district, I think it's one area that we need to work on. And I'm hopeful that when the new superintendent takes over, that we can develop a program, to bolster, as I said earlier, relationships internally and externally. And that's one big part of it is obviously the relationship with the community. And so, having forums periodically, whether it's monthly, quarterly, that we can get input from the community on a larger scale, I think it's something that I look forward to working on.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cerulli? How would you rate the administration's communication outreach with faculty and the community, and how would you improve it if needed?
Well, it definitely needs improvement. And I think it lacked a lot of visibility. And I think it really lacked the ability to filter down what its values are or what the culture of the organization is. Uh, as you may or may not know, I actually did some substitute teaching in the school district recently just to get a hands-on view of how it's working on a very operational level. And I walk in as a sub, and I walk in, nobody announces their name. They don't introduce themselves to me. They give me a key and the attendance sheets, and they say, go to room 105. Okay. Now, just picture if you went to a corporation on the first day, you walked in and nobody introduces themselves. They walk you over to your office and they give you a key, and then they expect you to perform. I thought, as small as an issue this is, it's not a major force, but I think it's a systemic problem of shouldn't they be communicating with their staff if a substitute is coming in? How do they handle, or how are they supposed to react to certain occasions? What happens if he does have a mental condition?
All right, thank you. Mr. Ford,
Can you repeat the question?
sure. I think I'm in the right place, yes. How would you rate the administration's communication outreach with faculty and the community? And how would you improve if needed? Sorry, I'm in a little trouble.
So it's tough to give a rating, and look, at the end of the day, here's what I'm going to propose. First and foremost, we need to have board docs. Most school districts have board docs. So that means when the public goes in and wants to see the agenda, they get to see all of the information that's part of the meeting, the same documents that the Board of Education would see. Secondly, I think we need to add 6 Board of Education meetings throughout the year where we could host the public to come in and tour our schools, have a more intimate setting, basically something like coffee and tea and crumpets, if you will. And the community gets to see and tour our beautiful schools and see what's going on inside the schools and have that more intimate conversation. I'll also ask the superintendent to have meetings with the Board of Ed and our teachers and staff, maybe something along the lines of a speed dating scenario where they can come in and sit down with each person for 5 minutes and give their ideas. The communications will get stepped up, and I'm, again, ecstatic that Dr. Enriquez will be here taking over the helm on July 1st.
Okay. Ms. Burke?
Communication is one area that I'm very focused on. I think it's a place that our district definitely can improve. I would like to see, first of all, an easier to use website. The website that we have now, it's clunky, it's hard to find information easily. So that would be a priority. I would like to see small gatherings as COVID guidelines are permitting. Where people can talk to Board of Education members, sign up for 10 or 15 minutes at a time. Not everybody wants to get up and speak at a Board of Ed meeting, whether it's on Zoom or in person. That can be very difficult for them. I'd like to see monthly newsletters in English and Spanish, highlighting everything, highlighting activities happening in all 6 schools. Report cards in Spanish, I think, are very important for communicating with our parents. Paid translators, I mentioned earlier. Oh, and I'd also like to see a place on the website where when people ask questions at Board of Ed meetings, they get a response. It may not be able to get a response, right away at that meeting, but that it will be posted for everyone to see. I think that would be wonderful.
I muted myself because my husband came in and asked me a question.
That was the answer.
I said yes.
Okay, good.
Mr. Ford, you had a rebuttal?
I'd just like to say, one of the things that Dr. Enriquez mentioned is that, she is going to be out with the public. She is not going to operate behind closed doors. She's going to get on a school bus with the kids. She's going to go to events in the community. She's going to participate and her door will be open. And I think, again, this is going to be a very significant and positive change for our community.
Okay, thank you. All right, we've now come to the part of the program where we have our concluding statements.
Don't I get to answer that question?
Did I skip you? Oh, I'm sorry. My
It's Port
husband
Chester, it's
distracted
Port
me.
Chester. I'm used to getting skipped over.
Oh, stop it, stop. I have one more little square here I forgot to check off.
That's
All right.
okay.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Matthews.
Okay. I think we need to develop a communication strategy and adhere to it. This will help, one, the community understand what is going to be communicated to them and how frequently, as well as the parents in terms of what's going to be communicated to them and how frequently, and the teachers. I mean, one problem that we have is engagement, and everybody wins when everybody is engaged. I mean, we need 100% support from the community, 100% support from the parents, and 100% support from our teachers. And that happens when we start to communicate. And communication is absolutely the key to solving a lot of the issues and little concerns. So that's my point on communication.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now we're coming to the time for the concluding statements. Now, each candidate will have up to 90 seconds for a concluding statement, and the sequence will be in the reverse order. So it will be Mr. Russo and Matthews and Ms. Burke and Ford and Cerulli. Okay, so we'll begin with Mr. Russo. Your concluding statements, 90 seconds.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you very much again to everyone, the League of Women Voters, the fellow candidates, the community, and everyone for the opportunity to speak tonight. As I said in the opening, you know, I've worked hard over my first term, and I would like to continue using my skills and now my experience to work for the benefit of the school district and the community. I think one thing that I'm clear about is that we're going to prioritize investments in our student body to give them all the opportunity they deserve. And with the new superintendent coming in, leverage her vision and her experience to improve the relationship with the community so that you know, we can take our students forward. And I think this is the right thing to do for our students, our community, and overall for our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Matthews?
Number one, I want to make sure that we give our new superintendent 100% support. Number two, we focus on universal connectedness and understand fully that we are all connected and we are all important to finding the solutions to the problems that are facing our school. Another is the 4 C's. I want to see more commitment for the kids so that they can develop courage, confidence, and enhance their capabilities. I want the kids to have accountability partners so that they have someone that they can go to either at the peer level or a teacher or a mentor or a coach. I want accessibility issues to be dealt with. I want the kids that are being left behind, that are not getting the needed support to finally get that 501c, I think it is. I'm not sure, not 501c, but I'm sorry, but the help that they need. I want our kids to have ambition. I want them to build a adversity so that they have advantage going into the next part of their life. I want, as why they're at our schools, to feel a sense of belonging, to feel welcomed, to feel valued, included, and that we believe in them because they are our future.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Burke?
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's forum. And thank you to the participants and to the audience as well. Transparency and collaboration, as I mentioned, are essential to the working of a good board. It's important that our community feels vested in the well-being and the success of our schools. And I hope this forum has helped to achieve that somewhat. The upcoming year will be one of transition and of hope, and we will welcome a new superintendent, Dr. Enriquez, in July. I'm eager to contribute to this new era for our school district. We have much to be proud of already here in Port Chester. We continue to successfully partner with many community-based organizations. Our children are are learning, and they'll be able to attend summer school for more learning recovery. We've been able to get everybody back in school, which is wonderful for those who have chosen to come back. Our school district needs to celebrate its successes and shout our accomplishments out loud. Shortly, we'll be receiving a substantial increase in funding from the state and from the federal government. And it will truly transform our schools. The Board of Education has to be responsible stewards of this long overdue funding that we fought for. It will allow us to restore critical programs that had to be cut. And it will give so many more opportunities for our students. We could accomplish all of this while staying mindful of the tax burden felt by the homeowners here. So I urge you to support the budget on May 18th, and I ask for your vote. And if elected, I will be a fierce advocate for all of Port Chester's children. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ford?
Once again, thank you to the League of Women Voters, the candidates, and our fellow residents who submitted questions and are Zooming with us tonight for this very important election. For too many years, our school district community have been looked down on. I am driven now more than ever to see this change, to have our schools and our community recognized with dignity and respect. It's time for us to take control of our own destiny, leaving the discourse, the negativity, and the naysayers behind. While the pandemic has hit us all hard, it's time we stop looking in the rearview mirror and we start looking forward. We will utilize our taxpayer funding and newly awarded foundation aid to create a more focused and efficient organization. I will make sure that our teachers and staff have the support and proper tools required to lead our children through this rapidly changing 21st century. I have the knowledge of the budgets, I know the people, and I know the process better than any of the other candidates, from state representatives to administrators to teachers to aides, parents, students, business owners, and of course, our senior citizens who have been the backbone of this community. I look forward to serving in this very important position, and I kindly ask you to support the budget and vote forward for the board on May 18th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cerulli, your concluding statements?
Okay, I would just like to add that the Port Chester education experience is more than just education. It's also the gateway to the American dream, and it's also an American economic engine. My family came in 1920. My father was an immigrant from Abruzzo, Italy, graduated at a vocational program, became a successful cabinet maker, and within one generation, he was able to turn out 2 doctors. I completed my DBA, became a department head, and this was all owed to Port Chester, and also became a published author and playwright. This could not have been achieved if I did not attend Port Chester High School. It taught me intellect, it taught me emotional intelligence, it taught me compassion, it taught me brinksmanship, and it gave me the tools of life. I am ever indebted to Port Chester, and it was my commitment to retire to Port Chester to give back all it has given me, because every breath I take and every dollar I made is a result of the foundation that it was set upon me by my teachers. I'm ever indebted to the school and everyone I came across and all my mentors, and I'm humbly want to serve them. And I say thank you for this opportunity, and good evening to all.
Thank you. Well, this concludes the forum for this evening. You've heard from the 5 candidates. They're running for 2 seats on the 5-person board of elections. Remember that voting day is May 18th and will take place at the Port Chester Middle School. And I hope all of you get out and vote. I believe the budget will be on that vote as well, right? As well as the candidates. So you'll have to vote for or against the budget, and also for your 2 candidates you think will best represent you. And with that, we'll say good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening.